Good evening, everyone. So I can see a few more students joining at the moment. Hope you all are good, had a great weekend, and staying safe. And first of all, I think I sent the email to the email addresses that I was given on Thursday, but we have got some new email addresses on the Facebook page of ours in the last 24 hours. So those ones, they have not been covered yet. They will be covered after the class today. So the students who gave it on Thursday, if any one of them is left out of the class, then you can leave your email address in the chat box. I got numerous of yours replies, acknowledgements, I should say, that you have received them. Thank you so much for that effort of yours. So I've got 4 email addresses now. One from Meera Joshi, Kirat, someone with the email address of Western Sydney, Sagar, Diljit, Shaki, Harshil, something with Twister, and then Rohit, Shravan, Pratibha, MK. Okay, take 2 minutes, all of you. Anybody who's left to receive the grammar sheet document, please leave your email addresses in the chat box. If you've done that at the Facebook page, then do it again. Okay, let's begin with today's practice test. And here is your first question on the screen. You have 2.5 minutes to solve this. Share your answers in the chat box as soon as you finish. All right. So the last one, last blank is something you are confused in. Okay, let's discuss the answers. Consumerism is a social and economic order. So it's a kind of a definition that they are giving us, that what is consumerism. So consumerism is a social and economic order that dash the purchase of goods and services. So this is one order, a singular noun. So our verb should be with S and our verb should be in present tense. There are two things that we can deduce from the sentence, that what we are talking is a present sentence statement. And second, we have a noun which is singular. So the verb with S should be our answer. So if we look at the options, the first one is supported, which is past form. So this cannot be the answer. Encourages, inspires, both are present tenses and with S, so that can be our answers. Is boosting cannot be the answer again, because consumerism is not doing something now. Consumerism is a concept. So that concept will be doing the things right from when it was introduced, right? So is boosting would be like consumerism is doing the thing now, but the way it is written is what is consumerism means it is a true fact. It was the same in the past, it is going to be the same in the future, and it is same in the present times as well. So now we have two options. Consumerism is an order that encourages the purchase of goods and services, or it inspires the purchase of goods and services. So obviously the answer, and most of you, and I should say rather all of you have got it right. Encourages, because of the sentence that it encourages the purchase of goods and services in greater amounts, that because of consumerism we are encouraged to buy more and more goods and services. The term consumerism has also been used to refer to something quite different called the consumerist movement, consumer protection or consumer activism, which seeks to protect and dash consumers. So we have one sentence here which seeks to protect and dash consumer. So one thing is we want to protect the consumer, and the other thing we have to find out that what else do we want to do with the consumer. So we have which seeks to protect the consumer and prevail the consumer, relate consumers, inform consumers, or accuse consumers. So protect means we are going in a positive sense, we are doing something for the benefit of the consumer. So looking at the word also has to be positive. So accuse cannot be the answer, and moreover, I don't think any business will ever accuse the customer or consumer. What we will want to do is prevail consumer. Now consumer is a human being. Human beings cannot be prevailed. Relate consumer or inform consumer. So what makes sense is through consumerism, we want to inform consumers and we want to protect them by requiring such practices as honest packaging, advertising, product guarantees, and improved safety standards. In this sense, it is a movement or a set of policies aimed dash regulating. So if we look at the options, we have simple preposition. So with aimed goes at. We always say aim at this thing in your life. So with aimed comes at, aimed at regulating the product, services, methods, and standards of manufacturers, sellers, and advertisers in the dash of the buyer. So in the dash of the buyer, what is the word that we generally use with what do buyers have? Do we say interests of the buyers, attention of the buyer, concern of the buyer, or regard of the buyer? So we always say what is the interest of the buyer, or we have to fulfill the interests of the buyers. So interest simply means what are their needs, what are their requirements, what are they looking for, that is their interests. So it will be in the interests of the buyer. And the last one, in an abstract sense, it is the consideration that the free, okay, let's read it from here. In economics, consumerism refers to economic policies placing emphasis on consumption. So this is the definition of consumerism in economic substance, that it refers to the policies and they emphasize on consumption, policies regarding to consumption. And an abstract sense that what exactly or what actually it means is, it is the consideration that the free choice of consumers strongly orient the choice what is produced and how. So what here our answer is should, because what they're trying to explain is what is the actual meaning of policies that emphasize on consumption is that in actual sense it is a consideration that we consider. So normally what happens is nowadays businesses, what they do is before making a product, they do a kind of industry study. They study that, okay, what is this person look, what are the persons in the market or what are the consumers looking for. So first they analyze and then they produce. So here they consider. Consideration means they consider that the free choice of consumers, so whatever you're offering to consumers should strongly orient the choice what you are producing. So it should be on the same page. What you are producing and what they are looking for should be the same. Only then you will be a successful business. If you will not analyze what the people are trying to buy and you are just producing with your own mindset, that will not match what they are looking for. And based on the context, the answer is should, that the consideration should orient both the choices, the choice of the consumer and the choice of what you are producing. Therefore, the economic organization of a society is built up in this form, right? So these are the answers. The first one is consumerism is a social and economic order that encourages us to buy more amounts of products. It protects and it informs consumers about honest things in the market, and there are policies which are aimed at regulating the products, the standards of manufacturers, sellers and advertisers in the interest of the buyer. And at the end it is should, based on the context that their choice should match the choice of the producer as well. All right, so if you have any doubts in this question, please use the chat box to raise them. Third one is a collocation. Whenever we say aim, we always use the preposition at with aim. We always say aim at this thing in your life, like aim at your future. So it with aim, it always goes, what always goes is at. If we have might, can, or could, may, then which option we will choose for answer? See, it depends upon what the sentence is saying. Otherwise, the options that you have mentioned is can, may, could, and might. There are two differences. One is can and may will be used if there is present tense going on. Might and could will be used if there is past tense going on. So first you'll have to check the sentence and find out what tense is the sentence in. Then secondly, you have to find out what probability the sentence is mentioning about. If there will be 50-50 probability, we will go with may or might. If it is more than 50% possibility, then you will go with can or could. So that is a differentiation between may and can. So here, concern of the buyer, no, we are trying to say the products, services and methods. So products will not be a concern of the buyer. Product will be an interest of the buyer. Method, services, manufacturers, sellers, advertisements, all will be in the interest of the buyer. In the interest of buyer means fulfilling the needs and requirements of the buyer. So there is nothing that you are doing which the customer or the consumer is not interested in. You are doing everything, every product, every service, method, manufacturer, seller, advertisement, everything is done keeping in mind that yes, it will interest the buyer. So that is why it will be in the interest of the buyer. The second one is they mentioned two requirement of verbs. One verb was we are doing this to protect the consumer, and the other blank we had to fulfill that. Why are we doing this? We are doing this to protect and inform the consumers by requiring practices such as honest packaging. So whenever it is about packaging or whenever it is about advertisements, the major requirement is that you should do it, and your aim and your target should be to inform that what are the ingredients, what is the manufacturing date, what is the expiry date, so that the consumer can make an informed decision based on all the information that you have to give. right? So that is why we are saying we want to protect the consumer and we want to inform the consumer. Okay, all good. Great. Let's move on to question number 2. 2.5 minutes to solve this. Okay, so we have got some answers. Is the second answer confusion? Do you want to recheck, Muhammad? Very good. Very good. Okay, let's have a look. One aspect of early television that can never be dash is the combined sense of dash and glamour that greeted the medium during its infancy. So you always and always have to make sure that you are understanding the context of the sentence. By context, what I mean is it going positive or is it going negative? Because that can help you to eliminate the options. And the quicker and the more you able to eliminate, you are getting more closer to your right answer. So here the word greeted. Do you ever think that we use the word greeted in negative sense? No, we always use it in positive sense. So that I'll come to that. Why did I say that thing? One aspect of early television that can never be dash. Now with be comes third form of verb, and moreover they mentioned that it was as it is an aspect of early television, and we can never do something with it. That can never be dash. So that can never be recaptured because they said it is not now. It used to be in the early times when television was introduced. And how do we know that? They say this during its infancy. Infancy stage is the stage of the initial starting stage of something. So we are saying that one aspect which used to be there during the infant years of the television, we cannot recapture those things. Recapture because obviously now it is not there. So keeping in mind the grammar, that would be will come third form of verb. And secondly, the meaning of the context, the answer will be recaptured. We cannot get it again. Now, what is that answer? What is that aspect? It is the combined sense of, now there are two elements in that aspect. It is the combined sense of dash and glamour that greeted the medium during its infancy. Now those who wrote the answer confusion, if you have just read and understood that the answer should be positive, not negative, then you would have not selected that answer, right? So confusion cannot be the answer. It is a sense of dash and glamour. The answer is astonishment. Some of you selected surprise. It is right what you understand, but surprise is a general word, and the academic word that means surprise is astonishment. And we always select a better academic version of a word if it is given in the options. So a good thing is nobody selected wondering. I suppose you understood that you simply need a noun. You don't need ing form of verb here. So sense of astonishment only because surprise can be better presented with the word astonishment in academic language, and that is why we are going with that. Okay. And then they even explained in the next sentence saying that at the midpoint of the 20th century, the public was properly gog about being able to see and hear actual events that were happening dash town and hundreds of miles away. So they said that people were in the midpoint of the 20th century, they were a bit surprised. Agog means that, again, astonishment kind of feeling, because they were able to see and hear actual events that were happening dash town or hundreds of miles away, that were happening across town. Across, because across is used when we want to say it can be any place in the town or it can be all over the town. Then we use the word across town. Or hundreds of miles away. Relatively few people had sets in their homes, but popular fascination with TV was so pronounced that crowds would gather on the sidewalks in front of stores that displayed a working television set or two. The same thing happened in a typical tavern where a set behind the bar virtually guaranteed a full house. Sports events that might attract a crowd of 30,000 or 40,000 suddenly, with the addition of TV, had audiences dash in the millions. So it's again a comparison that before the TV, there were 30,000 or 40,000 people going to watch sports. And after the TV, with the addition of TV, it had audiences dash in the millions. So the answer would be adding in the millions, counting in the millions, valuation or numbering in the millions. So it will be numbering. We are just saying that they used to be 30,000. After TV, this number became in, or this number went to millions. So it had audiences numbering in the millions. The last one, all dash by this one cultural juggernaut. So with all, is cannot come, is will come with singular. Has cannot come, has with come will singular. Supersedes cannot come, seeds with s will also come when your noun is singular. So there was nothing that you have to actually look at the context or you read the sentence. It was simple and simple grammar elimination. There was only one option that we had, all were superseded by this one cultural whatever it is. Okay, so the first one is we cannot recapture that thing again. It is a sense of astonishment and glamour. Confusion cannot be the answer because we are not talking about negative thing. We are talking about positive things. Surprise and astonishment are the same. So astonishment will be a better word. Across town, because across is used when we do not, we are not pointing out at a particular place, like in the center, in the east of the town or west of the town. When we want to say that it can be anywhere in the town, then we use the word across. When you say across the city, people are in lockdown. So across means everywhere in the city. So that is why we use the word across. Then it was 30,000 to 40,000 people, but then the audiences, we had audiences numbering in millions, just like we say the number went to these many millions. So that is why the word numbering in millions. And with all will come plural, and there was only one plural option, which was were superseded. Okay. It's nothing like we use the word across when we are talking about the world. No, it's a wrong assumption. We only talk about talk about the world across when we are just wanting to say that everywhere at a particular place. So then we use the word across. It can be across city, it can be across town, it can be across the area, it can be across the streets, it can be used anywhere when you want to say everywhere in that area. So that is use of across. No, why will we say it had audiences counting in the millions? We are not counting them. They already have counted for us and told us that there are millions of them. We are not counting it. We are telling that how much was the counting. So that is why we'll say we had audiences numbering in the millions, means their number was in millions. They have already done the counting. So we will not say counting in the millions. Last one, Babika, as I just said, you have to eliminate. Is comes with singular, has comes with singular, supersedes come with singular. So all is the only, the all is plural. So the only option that can go with plural is were. Rest three are the options that can only go if your noun is singular. All right. Anything that I missed? Any other doubt? Sorry, Babika, you said there is S. Which S are you talking about? All good? Okay. Let's move on to question number 3. Yes, Babika, supersedes is a verb, and a verb with S only comes when your noun is singular. For example, if they say it, then we can put supersedes, but they said all. So if you want to put supersede, it has to come without S. Only then you can use it. All supersede and it supersedes. That's the grammar. Okay, question number 3, 2.5 minutes for this. Yes, post your answers. Very good. Aman, check your last answer. Okay. In London, Newton dashed the role of patriarch of English science. So, if you read the next sentence, in 1703, he was elected president of the Royal Society. So, obviously, this is going to be past tense. Newton cannot be alive now if he was alive in 1703. The first thing we have to make sure is we are not going with present tense. Newton attains the role. Some of you wrote the word attains. Make sure that you're always checking your tenses before you're writing anything in your blanks. So attains will mean present tense, and it cannot be the case. We are talking about the 17th, 16th, and 17th everywhere you have. And moreover, this is the name of the person who was elected president in 1703. So he cannot be alive now. Whenever you have the noun role, the verb that goes with the noun role is assumed. We did it last week also. So this assumed does not mean like assumption. This is the verb that we want to say that he took the role. So took is not the word. The word is assumed whenever we talk about role. So you can make it a point that if you get a blank in which you have to put a verb for the noun role, you'll always say assume the role or assumed the role depending on the tense, but the verb will be assuming the role. It won't be taking the role or managing the role or anything else. It will be assume the role of. Here it will be assumed because of the collocation, that assume is the verb that goes with the role noun, and also because it has to be past tense. So that is why assumed, not attains, is the answer. 4 years earlier, the French Academy of Sciences had named him one of 8 foreign associates. In 1705, Queen Anne knighted him, the first dash on which a scientist was so honored. So if we look at the options, we have moment, episode, occasion, and case. Moment will be the answer if the preposition is at. The moment at which something happened. With on goes occasion on which. So that is the difference between moment and occasion. If let's say you're not able to differentiate contextually, then you can differentiate on the basis of grammar, and it will be occasion on and moment at. Episode and case won't just simply fit here. Those are not the right words to describe something happening in the past. So, the first occasion on which a scientist was so honored, Newton ruled the Royal Society magisterially. John Flamsteed, the astronomer royal, had occasion to feel that he ruled it tyrannically. In his years at the Royal Observatory at Greenwich, Flamsteed, who was a difficult man in his own right, had collected an unrivaled body of data. Newton dash needed information from him. Okay, so Newton dash needed information from him. Was receiving, would receive, has been received, and had received. So would will be future, has been is present, was receiving will be something happening in the past. But this is quite an old time, and they would not tell something that was happening without giving a hint. So the answer will be this happened already. So Newton had received needed information from him, and in 1690s, as he worked on the lunar theory, he again required Flamsteed's data. So we actually did some of the conversation about the use of had. though it is not required here, but just to tell you, had comes when there is sequence of events, when something happened and after that, like here they say he collected the data and then he again needed the data. So there is a sequence of the same type of thing happening again, or there is something in sequence happening to the previous thing, then we use had there. So he took the data once and then he again required the data, so the previous data that he took will become the had form. So Newton had received, otherwise you can eliminate based on has is present tense, would is future tense, and was receiving simply does not make sense because was receiving is just the latest past, we can say, like was happening at that time. So Newton had received needed information from him, and then annoyed when he could not get all the information he wanted as quickly as he wanted it, Newton assumed a dash and condescending attitude towards Flamsteed. So a dash attitude. So we need an adjective to describe the noun attitude, and that too, that should not be a vowel. So with arrogance cannot come with a, unfriendly cannot come with a, they need an to come as an answer. And here we have an adjective with ing, so we will also prefer ing. So domineering and condescending attitude towards Flamsteed. As president of the Royal Society, he used his dash with the government to be named as chairman of the body. So he was the president and he used his influence. Influence means when you are in power, you have certain you can say rights, you have certain powers. Again, when you have a position, you have certain powers that you can influence people to get what you want to be done. So this is what they're trying to convey, because he was at the position of the president. So as a president, he used his influence to be the chairman of something and something, right? So I read somebody writing guidance. So we cannot say he's a president and he is using his guidance. Guidance won't make sense with your position. So guidance is, you don't need a position to guide somebody. Guidance would be like you can guide anybody. And moreover, when they say as the president, that means as having the role of the president, as having the powers of the president. He used his influence, means he used his powers to do something that he wanted. Okay, so these are the answers. Newton assumed the role. As I explained, assumed will always be the verb that you will be using with the noun role, and past tense because we are in this century, 18th century. The first occasion because of the preposition on, and then Newton had received the information that he wanted. He assumed ing and ing attitude, and as the president, he used his influence to do something that he wanted. Any doubts in this question, anyone? Yes, Parminder. After ma'am, what is it? Are there any questions on this? Okay, no problem. No questions? Okay, very good. Okay, question number 4, take 2.5 minutes for this. All right. Let's look at the answers. Why did you write once as the first answer? Once is used, one use of once is when we are starting a sequence of events, once upon a time kind of a story. Otherwise, once is used again when we have a sequence of steps like once you enter the hall, you have to submit your mobile phone. So that is another use of once, like finishing something and then what you have to do next is the use of once. Here, whenever the first word of the sentence is a blank, 80% of the times we have it as a conjunction. So even looking at the options tell us that there are all kind of conjunctions. So we have to understand the context. So if we look at this, there is a comma, means it has two parts. So before selecting the answer, we have to understand the relationship of those two parts. Dash, both forces and motions are involved in the operation of machines. So to operate machines, there are two things. One is forces and one is motion. The primary function of a machine may be dash the application of force or motion. So they say although both are involved, but the primary function can be this, can be force or motion. So the first answer is although, that yes, both of the things are there, but the primary function may be either this or that. So this was the sentence. So they said although both forces and motions are involved in the operation of machines, that when we have to operate machines, two things are required, force and motion. Comma means when we use also, sorry, although, there is a kind of but which is represented with the comma. So you can say it as although both the things are required in the operation of machines, but the primary function of a machine may be dash the amplification of force or the modification of motion. So because of or here, it can be either the thing of force or the thing of motion. All right. So a lever is essentially a force increaser, while a gearbox is most dash used as a speed reducer. So they are giving the use of lever is used as a force increaser, and while is used kind of for making a comparison, that while gearbox is most dash used. So most regular use, most generally used, most hourly used, most often used. So most regular use does not make sense. It has to be most regularly used. Generally, if you say it is most something, how can it be generally? If a thing is general, it cannot be most. So one of the things can come. It cannot be most and generally both at the same time. Hourly does not make sense here. We are not talking about time. So we generally go with the collocation. Most often it is used as a speed reducer. So it was force increaser, while the other thing is most often used as a speed reducer. The motions and forces in a machine are inseparable, however, and are always in an inverse ratio. The output force on a lever is greater than the input force, but the output motion is less than input motion. Dash, the output speed of a gear reducer is less than the input speed. Again we have a blank, and if we look at the options, again we have conjunctions, so oppositely, similarly or identically. So it's quite clear. If it will be a conclusion, we'll say so. If it will go contrast, we'll say opposite. If it will go same, we'll say similarly. Identically is not a thing to be used. Identical is the word which is used when we want to say something is looking similar, then we say identically or identical when something is similar in physical appearance. So we have to understand the relationship the previous sentence and this sentence has. So the previous sentence said that output motion is less than input motion. This one is saying output speed of a gear reducer is less than input speed. So that will be similarly, because both of the output things are lesser than the input thing. So that is why the answer will be similarly. Last one, in the first case, a gain in force is dashed by a loss in motion. And the answer was given here. In the second case, the motion is accompanied by, so we'll also go with accompanied. First case, it is accompanied by this. In the second case, it is accompanied by that. So these are the answers. The first one is, although they both are important, but either of the two can be done as the primary function, but the primary function may be either this or that, one of the two. And then second one is most often as a collocation. Third one is third one is, sorry, second one is either, and then we have similarly because they are talking the same thing, and the last one is accompanied by, as it is already given in the sentence. Any doubts in this? Maybe is also there. Where? Whether this or that, that one, whether. So whether this or that, when you have a choice, that like when we ask a question, whether this or that is used when you are asking a question, that which out of the two are you talking about. Either this or that is when you have both the things and you are trying to say that one of the things can be the primary thing. So that is either this or that. When you're choosing and you're telling the answer, then it is either or. When you're asking a question, then it is whether. Third one is most often is a collocation. So most regular is a very common word. I don't think it is an academic word at all, first of all. Otherwise, to fit here, it has to be most regularly used as a speed reducer. Generally and most cannot come together. Something which is most cannot be general. And hourly, we are not talking about any time frame here. So we'll go with the general collocation is most often used as a speed reducer. Can we use yet for the first blank? You cannot use yet for the first blank. Yet is used when you are trying to say still. That is the use of yet. Instead, if there is and instead of or, then the sentence will have to be changed totally, because and cannot come when you're trying to say with, or when you're starting with although and then you're saying that primary function. So you cannot construct a sentence with and in that case. You have to keep in mind the context as well before changing any single word. So is used when you're concluding something. Yes, asking it is whether and telling it is either. All right. Okay. Next question, number 5, 2.5 minutes for this. Good job. So let's have a look at the answers. Most of you have done it correct. Okay. Until the mid 1980s, it was generally dashed that ice hockey derived from English field hockey and Indian lacrosse. So it was generally accepted. So accepted here kind of means that it was believed. So people used to think like that, is when we say it was accepted. So it was generally accepted that ice hockey came from this and this and was spread dash Canada by British soldiers. So we are talking about ice hockey. So ice hockey was spread dash Canada by British soldiers. So here it will be throughout Canada. So throughout means like all over, each and every place in Canada, not one particular place, not two particular place. We're just trying to say that everywhere in Canada. So was spread throughout Canada by British soldiers in the mid 1800s. Research then turned up mention of a hockey-like game played in the early 1800s in Nova Scotia by Micmac Indians, which appeared to have been dash influenced by the Irish game. So they found a new game. So let's try to simplify the sentence by not reading the comma part. So we'll read, research then turned up mention of a hockey-like game, which appeared to have been dash influenced by the Irish game. So then the research found another game, hockey-like game, which appeared to have been dash influenced by the Irish game. So if we read the sentence, it is complete without the blank. Have been influenced by the Irish game. So that tells us that we need an adverb, anything with ly. So looking at the ly options, awful means very bad. So awfully will mean very badly. We are not trying to say it was anything bad. We are just saying that we found another game which was influenced by another game. So more is the second form, which is used when you're making a comparison. We are not making comparison that how much influence was done. No. In how much influence between two things. No, we are just talking about one influence here. Heavily influenced or thickly influenced. So thickly influenced is not no thing. Thick is something in physical sense when you want to say thin or thick. So it is heavily influenced. Appear to have been heavily influenced by Irish game of hurling. It included the use of a hurley stick and a square wooden block instead of a ball. It was probably fundamentally this game that spread throughout Canada. I think all of the answers were there here. Via Scottish and Irish immigrants and the British Army. The players adopted dash off field hockey, such as bully, which is later on called face off, and shinning. This evolved into an informal ice game, later known as shinny or shinty. So what are these things? Bully and shinning. What is it? The players adopted dash off field hockey. The options we have elements, factors, portions, or details. So the answer is elements because there are things which are included in field hockey. So the things would be elements of field hockey. Elements would mean like um, kind of rules which were there, how the game was played, what were the elements. For example, in cricket, the elements are that the bowler has to come running and then bowl. That is one element is bowling. Another element is batting. Another element is fielding. So these are kind of elements. So the players adopted elements of field hockey, which were this and this. The name hockey has been attributed to the French word this, the term rink, referring to designated area of the play. It was used in 18th century Scotland. Early hockey games allowed as many as 30 players a side on the ice, and the goals were two stones, each frozen into one end of the ice. The first use of a puck dash a ball was recorded in 1860. So it is instead of. So what is puck is this the disc with which ice hockey is played. It's black color circular disc. So earlier it was played with a ball, and then the first time when the instead of the ball they used a puck was in 1860 in Canada. So these are the answers. Instead of was also given here, that they use wooden block instead of a ball. So kind of told you what we are trying to say. And then throughout Canada was also given, that it was spread throughout Canada means all over. Rest, some of you did this wrong. I think elements. I read somebody writing details. So this won't be the details. Better word would be elements. About details would be like theoretical things about it. So they adopted something, that would be they adopted the elements of the game. Right? Any doubts in this question, anybody? Elements would be better, not factors. Factors are something which are the reason of doing something. For example, we say what are the factors of uh, poverty, kind of we can say causes of poverty. So that is a better word for factors, like what are the factors of photosynthesis, kind of. Reasons, causes is more of the word that factors represent, not elements. Elements is different. Elements is like something which is there, like the rules of the game or how it is played. So taking those things would be elements. Portions, really. Portions would be like if you have a whole thing and you're dividing it into parts, that would be the portions. So over is not used when we are talking about a place. We say all over, not over alone. So all over and throughout can be very closely related. So we can say the disease spread all over Canada, or the disease spread throughout Canada. Throughout is more academic. Over and throughout should not even be confused, because it has to be all over to make sense with throughout. Otherwise, over just as a preposition is used, like we use on. Keep this over the table, so that just like that. Okay, all good with this one? Great. Let's move ahead. Last question for reading writing blanks, 2.5 minutes for this. Very good, Kumar. Good time management. Yes, post your answers, rest of you. All right. The first one, the only dash issues within a system of private ownership are, so we have problematic issues, arguably issues, debatable issues, and uncertain issues. So arguably doesn't make sense just to read the only arguably issues. It has to be arguable issues first of all to at least make sense. So arguably cannot be the answer. How do we know that these issues were certain or uncertain? So it is completely contextual, or I should say informative answer, that these issues were certain or uncertain, and we are appearing for an English language test. So they can only test the language, not knowledge. Problematic and issues. If something is an issue, obviously it involves a problem. So what is the general collocation is debatable issues. It's a very, very common collocation that you, I think in the essay templates also you must have read this, the debatable issue. It's a very common collocation. So the first answer is the only debatable issues within a system of private ownership are, first issue is who are to be the takers in intestate succession, and whether or not and within what limits freedom of testation dash be permitted. Very good, very good. Let's do drawing first. Okay. So the second one was, and whether or not and within what limits freedom of testation dash be permitted. So I'm very happy to see some of you selecting the right answer, that you understood the context. Only some of you though, very few of you. Shall be permitted is the answer because we still have to decide this, and it is going to be a future tense answer, and the only option that was future was will and shall are the two helping verbs that we go with in future tense. So it has to be shall because we yet have to decide what will be allowed, and will is not here. That is why we are going with shall be permitted. So it was completely based on that it has to be a future word as the answer here. So now if you read it together, the only debatable issues within a system of private ownership are, so what are the issues? Who are to be the takers? To be the takers means obviously in the future they will be the takers of succession, and whether or not and within what limits freedom of testation dash be permitted. That will be permitted or shall be permitted because it is going to happen in the future. In all societies, inheritance has developed as an incident of kinship, even in a society in which property is regarded as dash to individuals. So what is property to individuals? Property is regarded as belonging to individuals. Obviously, property, it cannot be an attachment to individuals. Property cannot be applying or familiarity. It is, like we said, this property belongs to me. So it is a belonging to individuals rather than kinship groups. The feeling of belonging to one's group is still so strong, especially between parents and children, that a person's sense of freedom would not be complete dash he knew that he could pass on his possessions to his children. So a person's sense of freedom would not be complete, means again it will not happen unless he knew. So till the time he knew, that is what they're trying to say, unless he knew that he could pass on possessions to his children. The question arises whether inheritance shall extend. Now see, I hope now it will make sense to you. Whether inheritance shall extend dash the circle of those persons with whom the descendant was connected. So whether it should extend beyond is also a collocation. Extend beyond means go above. something, or when you have a kind of limited circle, you want to go out of that circle, that is to extend beyond the criteria, extend beyond the area, or anything extend beyond a particular limitation that you had. So whether inheritance shall extend beyond the circle of persons with whom the descendant was connected by ties of affection, or about the well-being of he or she he was concerned about. So these are the answers. The first one is debatable issues. A collocation shall be permitted because we yet have to decide that thing in the future. Property is regarded as properties are the belongings to individuals, and the sense of freedom would not be complete unless that person knows that yes, I can transfer my possessions to the children, to my children rather, and extend beyond the circle. Again, a collocation, extend beyond something. Any doubts in this question, anyone? Second one is shall, because will and shall are two things that we use when we want to convey future tense, and here these things are to be permitted. Like here they say are to be the takers, means they will become the takers in the future, and the freedom of testation dash be permitted. So again, future tense shall be permitted because it is going to happen in the future. Fourth one is completely contextual, that a person cannot be having sense of freedom unless he knows that he can transfer his belongings to his children. So that is unless means till the time he know, or unless is if he does not know. So that's the opposite of that. Fourth one, without. No, without he knew. Unless he knew means he knows this thing is what they are trying to say, that they are saying that the sense of freedom would not be complete. So how it will not be complete is unless he knew. So till the time he knows this thing is what they're trying to say. Without he knew does not even fit grammatically if we try to put it. When can will come? So can will come if we are just talking about present tense, not about future tense, then can comes. Okay. Any other questions? All good. So let's do the blanks first, reading blanks. 2 minutes for this question. Check your last answer, Babita. And your first answer, Sakti. Is the human being doing the work in the first sentence? Okay, it was quite an easy question. In 1988, Hubble's Space Telescope Imaging Spectrograph. So this STIS is the thing, spectrograph, which is doing the work. This spectrograph took the first UV images of Ganymede dash revealed in two images. So we are not talking about Hubble doing or Hubble revealing something. We are saying the spectrograph revealed. So for spectrograph, it will not be who is used for human beings. It will be which. So this spectrograph took the first UV images, which revealed in two images colorful ribbons of electrified gas called auroral bands, and provided further dash that Ganymede has a weak magnetic field. Provided further evidence. So whenever we're talking about research, we generally use the word evidence. Further evidence is a very common collocation. So it provided further evidence that Ganymede has a weak magnetic field. The similarities in these UV observations were explained by the presence of molecular oxygen, but some observed features did not dash the expected emissions. So did not match what was expected. So there were some differences. Some features did not match the expected emissions from a pure oxygen atmosphere. At the same time, scientists concluded this dash was likely. So what is this here? This is the difference, because they just said that they did not match. Match means there is some kind of difference. So scientists concluded this difference was likely. So what is the word that mean difference here is discrepancy. Discrepancy just means like difference. So they are saying that scientists concluded this difference was due to so and so. We don't have the word difference, so that is why we'll say this discrepancy, because the previous sentence was talking about something's not matching, means there were some differences, right? Any doubts in this question? All good with this one? Why not equaled? Where is equaled? Where do you want to put equaled, Ajish? Which blank? Equaled rather. Instead of match. With did, you cannot have past form. With did comes first form of verb, V1. So you don't even need to know the meaning of what is equaled here. It cannot come only because of grammar. It has to be first form with did. You cannot have ed with it. All right. Okay, let's move ahead. Question number 2, 2 minutes for this. Not a good response for the first blank till now. Okay, let's discuss the answers. The concept of a president as a dual head of state and head of government had its dash with British colonial administrative structures in North America. Now, the important thing to understand in this was what is the topic that you are talking about. The topic was concept. So basically, you could have just read it from here. The concept had its dash with British colonial administrative structures, or the concept had its dash with British structures. This is what you need to do to understand the sentences and to simplify the long sentences in the exam as well. Otherwise, you won't be able to get the right answer. Now, this was as easy as concept cannot be established. Can we say the concept had its establishment? We don't say the word establishment when we want to say the start of concept. For concept, we say this concept originated. We don't say this concept was established because concepts cannot be established. So the answer was origin. The concept had its origin with British colonial administrative structures. So whenever there are too many things in a sentence, try to find out that you want your verb or noun or adverb or adjective with respect to what. Because that what is very, very important to let you know that, okay, like just to match, like can we establish concept, can we, or do we have origins of concept? So it's important to understand the relationship of two words. So here the answer is origin because concepts are originated, concepts are not established. So the concept had its origin with British colonial structures in North America. Leaders of colonial councils were called presidents, as were the heads of dash state government. So it was just completing of the sentence. So they say leaders of colonial councils were called presidents, as were heads of some state governments. So that means as some of the state governments were called same way, the colonial councils were also called presidents. The presiding representative at the Continental Congress retained the title, and when the US Constitution created the presidency of the US, the role carried greatly expanded executive dash. So with executive, it was easy, executive powers. The role carried executive powers, means that role had executive powers. Those powers would increase dash over time, particularly in the periods of national crisis. So some of you wrote slowly here. See, slowly is not the right word that can uh, denote what the sentence is trying to say. It has to be gradually. So slowly is not used when, slowly is just used when you're talking about movement of something. For powers increasing or decreasing, gradually would be the academic word that should come, not slowly. So the answer was the powers would increase dramatically, means a lot of increase in powers, particularly in periods of national crisis, which led historian Arthur Jr. to describe the modern office as the imperial presidency. Still, there remains some separation of powers. The US president cannot directly introduce legislation, and Congress dash the part of the purse. So, Congress would be considered singular. So we need a verb with S. Congress holds the power of the purse, or Congress retains the power of the purse. So it will be retains. You cannot hold power of something. You can retain power, and moreover, this word was used here. Where did I read it? Retaining means keeping whatever is with you, keeping that with you is the meaning of retain. So Congress already had that power and they will retain that power with them. That is why the answer is the Congress retains the power of the purse. Right? So these are the answers. Origin from is used, but when you are talking about the source of origin, then you use origin from. It's no meaning that origin can only come when you have from written with it. That is just a sentence structure, that this originated from, because here from comes later on. North America would be from here, and this is some other information that they are giving. So it had its origin with these structures in North America. All right. Any other doubts in this question, anyone? No more questions. All right. Let's see the third question. Take 2 minutes for this. All right, a good attempt. Abbreviation, shortened form of a written word or phrase used in dash of the whole. So the language was easy to understand. Used in place of the whole. Abbreviations began to proliferate in the 19th century and have been dash since. Have been prevalent since. Prevalent means common, commonly used something, and which is actually commonly can be, which is in trend, so we can say it's prevalent, and have been prevalent since means they are in trend from that time. They are employed to reduce the time required for writing or speaking dash when referring to myriad new organizations. So it is especially when doing this. So it is to reduce the time required, especially when you have numerous of organizations, technological products typical of industrial societies. An abbreviation can now easily become a word, either as an initialism in which the letters are pronounced individually, like for TV, we say T separately and V separately and FBI separately, or the other way is or as an dash in which the letters are combined. So it is or as an acronym in which the letters are combined. For example, for NAFTA, we don't say it separately, we say NAFTA, or laser or scuba. So the letters are combined, dash syllables, the letters are combined into syllables. Into means we say them as a word. Actually, it is an acronym, but we don't say it separately as one letter, letter by letter. We combine it and we convert it into a syllable and we say it as one word, which actually is not the case. So are combined into syllables. Any doubts? They are not combined with something. No? With will come when you have two things and you are combining them with each other. Combined into means you only have one thing. You have the words written like SCUBA and you're combining them into one word. So that is why it is into and not with. Why not terms? Where terms? First, so when you want to say TV, television, you write TV in place of that. Can we say you're writing TV in terms of television, or you will writing TV in place of television? It was very understood. Like you say EG for, you don't want to write the full word example, you write EG. So you're writing EG in place of the whole word example, not in terms of example. So fourth one is either there is one option that you can read the word separately, like T separately and V separately, like we do TV, or as an acronym. Acronym means when you have a short form and you read it as one word, like these ones, SCUBA. You don't read it like this. It is an acronym which you read combinedly. So it is SCUBA. That's an acronym, means that's the short form, and you combine it into syllable, combined into one word, which will be syllables. Right? Any other doubts on this question? Good. Anything else in this? All right. Let's move on to the next question. So question number 4, take 2 minutes for this. All right. Flip between titles. Are there only two titles that we are flipping between? Okay, so let's have a look. As you scroll through Amazon, as you scroll through Amazon looking for the perfect product or flip dash titles, it will be flip through only. Between is used when you have only two things. We don't have only two titles on Netflix, so it will be flip through titles on Netflix, searching for a movie to fit your mood. Auto-generated recommendations can help you find dash what you are looking for. So they can help us to find exactly what we are looking for. So auto-generated recommendations can help you find exactly what you're looking for among extensive offerings. These recommender systems are used in retail, entertainment, social networking, and more. In a recently published study, two researchers from the University of Texas investigated the informative role of these systems and the economic impacts on competing sellers and consumers. Recommender systems dash ubiquitous in e-commerce platforms. So it is systems, the noun is plural. So what can we say? We cannot say is becoming because they have systems. So it will be these systems have become ubiquitous in e-commerce platforms and are touted as sales support tools that help consumers find their preferred or desired product among the vast dash of products. So among the vast varieties, we can choose what we desire. So far, dash of the research has been focused on the technical side of the recommender system, while the research on the economic implications is limited. So when while is used, we have to maintain a contrast in the words that are being used. So here they said limited. The opposite of limited would be most of the research. So one side is most of the research has been focused on technical side, while on economic side it is limited. So most means major proportion and limited means very less proportion. So these will be the answers. Flip through because we'll have numerous titles. Find exactly what we are looking for. And then these systems have become, because it is plural, vast varieties or vast variety of products, so easy to understand, vast variety of something. And most and limited because we need contrast because of the use of the conjunction while in between. Much and when do we say more? What is the difference? So more is used when you are making a comparison, when there are two things. For example, you can say he is more intelligent than her. So when you have than in between, when you're comparing two people or two things with each other, then is when we use more. And much is like we just say for one person, he is much intelligent. So for one person, not any comparison, then we can use much. Okay, so see, when we are looking at Netflix, how can we say that the recommendations, they help us find options what you're looking for? No, they'll help us find exactly what we want to watch. Na? Why will they give us options what you are looking for? So, and moreover, when you can read the sentence without the blank, it is a complete sentence. The recommendations can help you find what you are looking for. So that tells us that we need to put an adverb in here with the word ly. So you cannot just insert information when it is not required. Information is complete. You just have to fit an adverb to further specify the information. Yes, much is for uncountable and more is for countable if we have that scenario. Right? Any other doubts in this question, anyone? All good with this? Right. Moving on to, sorry. Question number 5, the second last question for these blanks. Take 2 minutes for this. Not not correct. The first answer. Yes, it has to be assess. You won't measure the level of security of an IT system. You can assess the level of security. So it will be expertise to assess will be a better word rather than measure. Measure has a more specific meaning when you are talking about quantitative terms. Assess is a broader form of measure which can include both the quantitative, like when we are talking about measuring something in liters, kilometers, or meters, something like that, and assess in the level that we want to assess the security. That won't be meters or centimeters. So assess will be the right word. Measure would be too general, too common. So expertise to assess the level of security of a particular IT system is not commonly available in one location. In addition, knowledge on vulnerabilities in systems develops dash. So knowledge on if there will be any vulnerability in the system, the knowledge about that develops dash. So we had two options, rapidly or quickly. Again, quickly would be a general word, rapidly would be a better academic word. So we'll go with that. If there are any vulnerabilities, the knowledge on those develops rapidly, making it essential for organizations to maintain up-to-date awareness of the system's potential exposure. That is why the organizations have to remain up-to-date. The proposed approach is designed to capture and integrate security assessments. So see, this was the word given here to give you a hint that they are not talking about security measurements, they are talking about security assessments, including associated uncertainty dash a number of sources. So the uncertainty can come from a number of sources. Oh, I did not write it. Okay. Including associated uncertainty from a number of sources, including government services such as NCSC and third-party security providers. So number of sources, it can come from number of sources. For example, it can come from government services, it can come from third-party security providers. The key dash here is to develop ways to gather and model or model this often complex information effectively. So what is the challenge here? The key challenge here is that we have to develop, we have to gather, we have to model this complex information in a proper way. Dash also dealing systematically with this caught in the security assessments. So it will be while also dealing. While here is being used when we are doing two things together, then also the word while is used. So for example, uh, complete your homework while watching TV. So that is doing two things at the same time is the use of while here. That the challenge is we have to gather the complex information while at the same time we have to also deal systematically with discord in the security. Right. So when you are doubtful about, for example, the words like measure and assess, look at the context. They will give you some kind of hint. If it would be very, very, linked and closely related words, there will definitely be some hints for us to understand that what they're trying to do with this. Okay. Any doubts in this question, anybody? No doubts? Okay, great. So we have the last question for reading blanks, like 2 minutes for this. Good, good job. Just the last one, even I was not sure about that. So if this one says psychedelic drugs are psychoactive drugs, dash primary action is to alter the thought. So we are talking about drugs whose primary action means the primary action of these drugs. So drugs whose primary action is to alter the thought dash of the brain. So in the brain we have a lot of thought processes. Thought processes is a collocation when we talk about the brain. So this primary action of these drugs is to alter the thought processes of the brain. Many psychedelic drugs are thought to disable filters which block or dash signals. So or means the other word also will be meaning the same like block. So the word is suppress. Suppress. Sorry. So these drugs are thought to disable filters which block or suppress signals related to everyday functions from reaching the conscious mind. These signals are presumed to originate in several other functions of the brain, including but not limited to the senses, emotions, memories, and the unconscious mind. This effect is sometimes referred to as mind expanding or consciousness expanding, as your conscious mind dash aware of things. So mind is singular, we'll need a verb with S. We have to gets aware or becomes aware. So becomes aware makes more academic language. The mind becomes aware of things normally inaccessible to it. At high levels, this can overwhelm is the right answer. 2 or 3 of you got it right, very good. I did it wrong. I also put affect, but it would be like when you want to say something becoming too much, the right word to use is overwhelm. So at high levels, this can overwhelm the sense of self. You'll have too much sense of your own self, and that will result in dissociative state. Dissociative state, not associate, dissociative state. So when we want to say that at high levels, you will become over obsessed kind of with your own self. So too much of sense of your own self, it can result in something dissociative state. So this last of the blank, I would consider maybe kind of a difficult blank, which is completely context based, not based on grammar. So can give you a grace mark for this in the practice sessions, but not in the exam. Okay, so these are the answers for this question. Any doubts, anyone? No questions for this? Yes or no? Okay. Great. So we are left with reorders. We have 4 of them today, small ones. Okay, let's mark something in this one. Start doing this. Okay, an easy one. Very good. The first one is B, where we are giving a definition of what is a conjecture. It is a mathematical conclusion or proposition that has not been proved. The second sentence is continuing that once the conjecture is proved, it becomes a theorem. And then A, where we are saying that discovery of a mathematical conjecture on fundamental constants is relatively rare, and its source often lies in mathematical genius and exceptional human intuition. And then we gave examples of such genius. Such was a direct reference to these genius that we mentioned. So it is B, C, A, and D. Right, and very good, all of you have got it correct as far as I have on my screen. Good job. Third question. Okay, an easy question again. Direct references. Very bad, Diljit. Only one right answer till now. All right. Not a good response. How can B come first? You don't even know the full form of FRU. It is given in one of the sentences. How can you put the acronym first and you will put the full form later on? So the first sentence is C. Some 400 million people change their phone's components such as touchscreens, chargers, or batteries or sensor assemblies, which are all susceptible to significant security breaches and attacks. And then it was a direct reference saying these components. So you just said there are different components, phones components, and then you are saying these components you just mentioned. And then you say a malicious vendor could add a compromised FRU. So FRU is the field replacement unit that you talked about to a phone, leaving it vulnerable to financial theft, fraud, malicious photo, video distribution. And this problem, what is the problem? Problem is this: vulnerability to these things is the problem. Vulnerability of financial theft, fraud, malicious photo, video distribution, or unauthorized app downloads. So this problem is especially acute in Android market with many manufacturers that operate independently, the researchers say. So this was third, where you mentioned about FRU, and then you again talked about that. And in the end, you said this problem was the vulnerability to these issues. Okay. Any doubts in this question, anybody? All good? All right. Second question. Okay, this one is a bit confusing. The first one is right. All of you have got it right. Among the most conspicuous trends of modern legislation is the vanishing concern about keeping property within the bloodline through which it came to the descendant. So this is the topic of ancestral property something. Then we'll start with the traditional idea. That this traditional idea, now this means the idea that we talked about here, keeping property within the bloodline, that was the idea. So this traditional idea, which was particularly strong with respect to land, had in the field of intestacy resulted in the so-called rule of ancestral state. Now here we introduce another term, which is rule of ancestral state. This is why it is linking us to first sentence again. In Anglo-American law, the doctrine of ancestral state was part of the canons of descent of real estate. So we are giving further information on what is this rule. It was part of this descent of real estate. And what is the meaning of this rule? It meant that if an intestate died without descendants, property that had come to him from ancestors should revert to the line where it had come. And in the end, we are talking about that in England, the principle was abolished in 1929. And in the United States too, it has practically disappeared. So it has, because we are finishing in the present tense. We started with the past tense, talked about what are the things there, and then finished in the different tense, that now it has disappeared in United States as well. So you should be getting the first one correct, D, and then linking it to C. 1 and 2 should have been correct, which Ajish has got, Kamal V has got, very good. And if you have got these, then this ancestral state should have been matched with this ancestral state. And it meant, because we are having a term with us and we have to explain what is the meaning of the term, and then we will say that it has been abolished. So, comparatively difficult, but these are the reasons for its order. And the last question for, okay. Sometimes you behave like you just want to go and write anything as your answer. The first sentence is B. So whenever you have a question mark in one of the sentences, the first thing that you have to do is to find out, do you have the answer to that question given to you or not? If the answer to that question is given, obviously it will come right after the question. If the answer to that question is not given, then the sentence with the question mark will be your last sentence. It cannot come in between the sentences because you will not have anything to follow up on that. So here you have the question mark and we have the answer also to that question mark. That is why question mark sentence will come first. Can you trust the map on your smartphone smartphone or the satellite image on your computer screen? So far, yes. So this was the answer to the question, but it may only be a matter of time until the growing problem of deepfakes converges with geographical information science. So these were the first pair. This was the first pair. Then the other pair was also very easy because you have the full name and the acronym. The full name was Associate Professor of Geography. The full name is Chengbing Deng. This is the full name, and then you only have Deng, which is the acronym rule being applied, and your answer is A and C as your second pair. This is one of the questions in which you should be getting full marks in the exam. Okay. Any doubts here? Should not. All right, so these were the questions for today. Those who do not have any doubts or any questions, yes, you are free to leave. Those who want to ask something, they can stay back. And one thing, I have noted the emails that you have sent me today. You'll get the material by tomorrow afternoon before the class, definitely. Anything else that I can help you with? You're welcome, all of you. Good night. Stay safe. Take care. And you're welcome always. Amrit, we have a mix of questions. Like sometimes we do some really difficult tests. Sometimes we have average. Sometimes we have easier ones. But because we design these tests more keeping in mind the examination point of view, but in portal we want to prepare you for the worst case scenario. So both the things are important. Yes, the class will be same time tomorrow, 7 p.m. You have to keep in mind that in the exam it will never be the case, fortunately, and most of the times it is not the case. I'll get all the questions difficult or all the questions easy. There's a good blend that we get in the exam, so keep on practicing both the things. That will be more helpful. That's not possible, Ismail. That's okay. Maybe I missed one or two, three questions. That's okay, doesn't matter. Keep practicing from the portal. Collocations is like it's a very vast topic. So try that you can fetch some list. I think we have a list at the center as well. So get in touch with the tutor, with your tutor, and ask them for the list. Maybe they can help you with that. Karan Raj, try to get 80% minimum in your blanks. That should be good enough for 79. The more is better, but at least 80% on a consistent basis should be a good score.